Two of my absolute favorite, most powerful superfoods in existence, without a doubt, are spirulina and chlorella. So I brought on my friend Catherine Arnston, who specializes in this exact topic. We had a wonderful discussion on the podcast. She delivered so much value, and I wanted to share some of that in this little clip with you right here. So enjoy this clip. Also, I highly recommend checking out the full-length podcast by clicking the link in the description down below. Enjoy.
There's some concern around, getting chlorella or spirulina that comes from China in particular, and maybe there's a few other sources that it could come from that are concerned. And I know that there are certain countries, let's say Japan, Taiwan, maybe Korea, where my understanding is that they're much much less toxic and they're very clean. So can you differentiate between clean sources versus bad sources?
Sure. Well, Taiwan is world renowned for having the highest quality, but and I would definitely stay away from anything in China. But even within Taiwan, you still have to. It's still the individual company that's growing the algae. So I mean, there's some good algae coming out of India now, for example. So the way to find out if there's toxins is to test for it. I'm very proud that we grow ours very carefully, triple filtered water. We have lab tests that are provided to us by the growers, but I know because we sell ours through doctors nationwide, naturopaths, chiropractors, they need and believe only documentation that is from the US from a FDA approved source. So that's what we use for our testing. So not only do we test for toxins, of which we have none, we also test for all the nutrients so they can see that we're not faking anything at all. And then it took me 2 years to find this, but because Dominique D'Agostino had asked me about this about 4 years ago about mycotoxins, and those need to be tested from a very special lab. It took me 2 years to find a lab, but I found one, and we test for those too. And again, we don't have any because they are grown, our algae is grown in a very carefully controlled freshwater environment. Yes, there will be mycotoxins in algae that grows in lakes or oceans because they exist in those environments. And there are a couple of scientific documents circulating about testing spirulina and chlorella and finding mycotoxins. And I have combed through those research papers, and the source was Klamath Lake. And then there were other research that found out that Klamath Lake was toxic. Oh, no surprise that the algae was toxic. So just be careful not to make huge assumptions. It's like, going to a swamp, with toxic water and declaring, I'm not going to drink water anymore because that swamp water is toxic. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Check your sources, ask for information. And there are good suppliers out there, just like in any industry. There's some good ones and not so good ones.
Got it. My last question to you is specific to chlorella. You brought up that chlorella has, I think, the thickest cell wall or hardest cell wall.
Yes.
And in order for it to be digestible and for us to get the full benefits of it, my understanding is the chlorella has to go through some process to either, under pressure, crack the cell wall, or I think that there's another process. I think I remember reading about one in Korea that has really thin cell walls that isn't cracked or something like that. I think my understanding is there's a couple different processes that are used.
Yes.
Can you describe that and what is optimal?
Yeah. Well, the original chlorella company is called Sun Chlorella, and I'm very grateful for them because they're about 50, 60 years old, and they spent 10 years figuring out how to grow chlorella. It's a very complex plant to grow. And they also are the ones that discovered that you had to crack the cell wall in order for your body to be able to absorb all the rich nutrition that's in there. So that being said, I'm very grateful for them doing that. But And the technique, and then when other companies started growing chlorella, they used the technique that Sun Chlorella developed, which is called Dynomill, which is to crack the cell wall by tumbling it with glass beads. But then research was done and discovered that as the glass heats up, lead from the glass leaks into the chlorella. Which they denied, but then the state of California tested it and blah, blah, blah. So this knowledge came to me as I was forming the company, and I said, well, that's not going to work for me. There's got to be another way to crack the chlorella. And there was a new technique that we use, and I'm sure there's probably a few other companies that may as well, I don't know, where we pass the chlorella through a sound, basically a sound chamber, and it's the vibrations that are cracking the cell wall. So there's no heat, no lead, and the other sad thing about the heat is that, of course, it causes some deterioration of the nutrition. But most importantly is there's no lead.
Hey, this is Ari. I hope you enjoyed this little clip. And if you want to listen to the full-length podcast, the link for that is down in the description below. Also, one more thing before you go, I want to mention, in case you don't already know about it, our formula, Energenesis. This is an amazing product that has multiple compounds in it that are scientifically proven in numerous studies to increase your energy levels, not just by 3% or 5% or 10%, but by 30 or 40 or 50% in a very, very short time frame. So one of these compounds that I'll mention here is called NT factor phospholipid, and it is an extract of phospholipids that comes from lecithin, and they extract the pure phospholipids from this, things like phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylethanolamine, and many others. And these are the same fatty acid compounds, phospholipid compounds, that compose our cell membranes and mitochondrial membranes. And this specific patented formula has been shown actually to enter into the bloodstream undigested, basically without being broken down and denatured through the digestive process in the stomach and the intestines. It makes it into the bloodstream and actually makes it all the way to our cells and to our mitochondria, where it helps repair damaged mitochondrial membranes and facilitates our mitochondria functioning better. Now, all of that sounds like wonderful theory, and it sounds like it could be beneficial, but the real test is, has it actually been studied and been proven to increase your energy levels? And the answer is yes, absolutely. There are numerous studies outlined in a wonderful paper by a scientist named Garth Nicholson, in a paper called Lipid Replacement Therapy. I highly recommend checking this out if you're interested in digging into the research. But this compound has been studied in the context of multiple different kinds of chronic fatigue. Aging-related chronic fatigue, obesity-related chronic fatigue, obscure things like Gulf War illness, and numerous studies in chronic fatigue syndrome. And there are studies showing that this has the capability. They've taken one study, in fact, actually showed that in elderly adults over the age of 65, it restored their mitochondrial health, which had deteriorated heavily. It restored it to the level of healthy 29-year-olds, believe it or not. And they've actually measured energy levels in these people. And all of these studies across the board show improvements in energy of at least 25%, and typically more like 35 to 45% in just the span of between 4 to 12 weeks. That's how long all of these studies are, 4 to 12 weeks. They're showing dramatic, huge improvements in energy levels by helping to repair these mitochondrial membranes through this thing called lipid replacement therapy, using, again, this patented form of a phospholipid extract called NT factor. This is just one of about 20 ingredients proven to benefit mitochondrial health that you'll find in my formula, Energenesis. So I strongly encourage you, if you are struggling with your energy levels, if you're dealing with chronic fatigue, go grab yourself a bottle or 3 of this, or subscribe and save. Try it out. You are going to be blown away by the results. We get so many testimonials. We get so many emails from people talking about how this one thing has transformed their lives. So I cannot encourage you strongly enough to give this a shot. And let's say you buy 3 bottles, Try out the first one, give it a month, and if you don't notice significant improvements, you can return the unopened bottles to us for a full refund. So give it a shot. I really think you're going to be blown away by the results. The formula is called Energenesis, and you can get it at theenergyblueprint.com or click the link below. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll talk to you again very soon.